My name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to take you through a little bit about the importance of healing our internalized system of punishment reward. Okay, now this is a really important thing for all insecurely attached individuals to work on. And I think this is actually a really important thing for all human beings to work on. And I'm going to talk about why and really the importance of transforming this relationship we have to ourselves and how it impacts our internal dialogue, how it impacts our interactions, how it impacts our ability to speak up and feel confident in our lives. So we're going to do a deep dive into this. And I think really the effects of creating change in this specific area are almost immeasurable. Very, very profound effects from focusing in on this one specific tool. So I'm going to give you a tool at the end for how to take your punishment reward system and turn it into something different and much more effective. It's a 3-step system. So stay tuned for that. Before I dive into all of this, I have a really exciting announcement. We are adding just until the end of the year, basically because of all the craziness that's happening in the world right now. We are adding our attachment and accountability coaches to do live events 3 times a week. I already do 4 webinars a week. So 3 times a week, we have a morning routine, an evening routine, and a mastermind group social. And it's all over a video so people can connect, see each other, do all of that. Then, of course, I do the 4 live webinars a week on top of that. So we're adding this like community space because I know a lot of people, it's November 4th right now where I am. And well, like where I'm recording this. And I know, the election in the US, like the results are up in the air. I know that people are feeling afraid. I know that there's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. And I know that COVID is still very much a thing. So even like where I am located in the world, things are shutting back down and then they're opening back up and then they're shutting down again. And it's kind of like just this time of uncertainty. So for those of you who are living alone, want extra support, all of that, we are adding that in there. And of course, I'm trying to do a daily video for all of COVID, all of the uncertainty, the entire time to provide some extra support on this channel. And we are keeping the 25% off with you discount code. And we also have our 90-day challenge. So we're adding like as many community things as possible for the same price. And that 90-day challenge is your 90 days to become secure going into 2021. And there are goals like complete 2 courses a month with all the workbooks, attend 2 live webinars a week. And if you do that, you are on track to become secure. According to our data, we have so many people coming out of secure if they follow those specific regulations in the school. So check that out. With you is the coupon code. I'll put a link in the description box below, a card on this video, and that is all exciting stuff. So, and I hope everybody's doing okay right now, and I hope everybody feels supported. And if there's anything I can do through this channel to support you guys or inside of our school to support you guys, please let me know at any time. Okay, so let's talk about this. So we all get raised in the system of punishment reward. And of course, this system is a little more dysfunctional as a general rule for kids that develop insecure attachment styles in childhood, and then of course grow up with those insecure attachment styles in their adult lives. Now, it doesn't mean that like the intention was to have dysfunction from the parents. It just means that the actual system itself tends to be a little bit more dysfunctional as a whole. So it could be that the punishment was too intense. It could be that a child isn't rewarded enough. It can be that the punishment reward happens so much that a child learns to, identify their sense of self and identity through who they are being in the world, what they're doing, instead of feeling like they're worthy of love just for being who they are. It could be that they're neglected quite a bit. And so there's really a reward component missing. And then when punishment happens, it just feels like it's such a blow to the relationship. It's sort of like if you have $5 in your bank account and, 250 is taken away, then that's different than if you have $1 million in your bank account and $2.50 is taken away. Like it's just, that emotional neglect when our tank's on empty, whatever's taken out. I'll make a separate video about that because it's really important, but it hurts more. That's why, as a general rule, DAs are so sensitive to criticism. So what you'll see is we all grow up in this system of punishment reward. And it affects us differently. It affects insecure attachment styles the most. Securely attached individuals tend to have less punishment, less harsh punishment. and a generally overall more healthy dynamic so that it doesn't have the same impact as with an insecurely attached individual, who's either experiencing some form of emotional neglect, who's experiencing enmeshment and one-way connection, also a form of emotional neglect, or inconsistency where there's this fear of abandonment developing. And then, of course, when we go through the punishment and reward system where we're growing up and we're socialized around stuff, it's that much more painful and challenging a lot of the time. So these are really important principles to be aware of first, okay? And then I'm going to talk to you about how this really deeply impacts us in our adult lives and what we can do about it. Now, as we go through this system of classical conditioning and as we grow up in the world, what happens is we try to enact that system of punishment and reward on the relationship to ourselves. We start doing this in childhood. And by the way, like this system of socialization is important to a certain degree. A child needs to know they can't go running out in the street without looking for cars. And sometimes, explaining the full consequence of what happens doesn't have the same impact as a punishment does. And so sometimes there's absolute necessities to this system because it keeps a child safe and it's part of how we socialize and how we learn and how we grow. There are many updated things like class or conscious conditioning, things like that are now working to substitute classical conditioning, but there are definitely times and places where that's still going to be the best option for very specific reasons. So let's go to how this impacts our adult lives. So we grow up and we want to avoid punishment and we want to gain the reward. This is how our brain is wired. This is very much the survival brain. And what happens as a byproduct of this is we work to try to adapt by beating our caregivers to the punishment. It's like if we can punish ourselves and know what we're doing wrong before they do, then we can avoid the punishment from them, and then we can probably alter our behavior to try to receive the reward. And so we grow up doing that. And then we also grow up, for some people more than others, getting the punishment, receiving the punishment. And so whatever we are repetitively exposed to that elicits an emotional response is highly likely to become an imprint on a person's subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is programmed through repetition plus emotion. So I want you to notice two things. Number one, you actually adapt behaviorally to enact the system of punishment and reward on the relationship to yourself in order to try to avoid the punishment from someone else externally and gain the reward from someone else externally. And you're also being imprinted with this stuff on a regular basis. So not only do you make the behavioral adaptation, but you also are being imprinted and your subconscious is being programmed by this. So what's the net result in our adult lives? We are often in a state of having the majority of our internal dialogue, the majority of our roughly 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day, according to a study done at the at the University of Southern California's Neuroimaging Institute. We are generally in a state where we are literally enacting the system of punishment reward in the relationship to ourselves all throughout the day. Now, what does that mean? Well, when we're in that state, the thought patterns we have produce emotional responses. How do we feel when we're telling ourselves nobody's going to like you at this event? When you walk into a social event, you're not safe there, everybody's going to judge you. How do we feel? Those thoughts produce feelings. Those feelings are made up of neurochemical reactions. Okay, so we literally are creating our own cortisol responses in that instance or example when our internal dialogue is on autopilot. And then neuroscience has proven all of our decisions, or all of our behaviors or actions are literally based on our emotions. A neuroscientist, Antonio Damasio, discovered that, I believe, in like 2008. So what happens is if the vast majority of our life or day is our internal dialogue, judging ourselves on autopilot and punishing ourselves and beating ourselves up, there's a lot of real estate being taken up in our brain that could be put to better use for better things. And here's the most important part that I really want you to understand. When we punish ourselves in our adult lives, it does not work. Yes, there might be times as a child where we had to learn that way because we didn't have proper language, we didn't have understanding, we didn't have knowledge in certain areas yet. But punishment distracts us from accountability and awareness. And so when we're beating ourselves up, and I'm going to give you an example, a story of a client I was talking to once years ago. So this client was saying that he was on a lunch break at work, and he went over to the bank, and he was feeling really stressed. His boss had given him like all this work to do. He was feeling really behind, and he really struggled to set boundaries, on a side note. And so he's feeling really stressed, really behind. He goes to the bank. The bank teller makes a mistake, and he's trying to rush back to finish his work, to get back for lunch, so then he can, or after lunch, and work through part of his lunch and then see his girlfriend and be on time for that. And he's just feeling like the world is closing in on him a little bit. And he gets into this space where he's feeling really stressed. The bank teller makes a mistake. He yells at the bank teller, and he just kind of like, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Then what does he do? He gets in his car. He goes, I'm never going to that bank again. I feel so ashamed that I just acted that way. He beats himself up like crazy. And at no point, because he's so busy beating himself up and then feeling pain around that situation and avoiding it, at no point is there room for him to be like, what led up to that? Let me address the root causes of what actually led to that behavior so I can correct things at the root level. And hey, let me look at the root. The root is, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not setting boundaries. I'm not speaking up. And so, of course, I'm like a volcano waiting to erupt. And let me work on the root level of behavior. So, there is no need to have that surface symptom of losing my shit to happen in the first place at that level, or, as a surface symptom, right? So, when we don't have that awareness, and then the second and very, very important thing, equally important, is then we don't get to go, oh my goodness, how do I take accountability? How do I repair that, like, with that person? And when we're so busy shaming ourselves and beating ourselves up and enacting that punishment reward system, we don't want to go near any of the stuff that we made mistakes around. It is significantly more difficult to do so because the brain is designed to avoid pain. So if we're shaming ourselves, shaming does not feel good, and then we want to avoid that. So I just want you to notice like this whole dynamic here of what happens. So we punish ourselves, we get into this negative spiral. Then our brain just avoids pain and tries to repress, and often tries to avoid its feelings around the situation. So then we'll go on to have like self-numbing behaviors, coping mechanisms, things that might have really dramatic downsides, instead of being able to go, wow, pause, let me stop the like anger towards myself and the beating myself up, and let me instead inquire as to what the root cause was for this taking place to begin with. Then let me have some compassion and treat myself like a human being, not a robot that's supposed to work 80 hours, be on time for the date with the girlfriend, never say no to the boss, never have an emotional eruption, even though you're treating yourself like a robot. Let me have some compassion, and then let me take some accountability. Okay. So you can think of ICA: inquire, find the root cause of your behavior. Compassion, okay, have some compassion for yourself. Actually treat yourself like a human being, like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm not setting boundaries everywhere. No wonder this is happening. And then let me take accountability. Let me return to the situation from my own emotionally regulated space where I have room to be accountable, because I'm not so busy distracting myself by beating myself up and then not thinking about the root level of the situation. And then let me go have a strategy to take accountability and create change. Okay, so ICA. And this is a really important substitution for the punishment reward system, because the punishment reward system, when we go through it in childhood, is on the continuum of trauma. Okay, everybody goes through trauma, and the system of classical conditioning is one of those traumas. Why? And I'm not saying it doesn't serve in some purposes. I want to make that very clear. But basically, the emotional inferences we get as children, as very young children, when this often starts, is love is conditional. We have to earn our worth and our love in the world. And if we don't, we'll get punished for it. So we spend a lot of time fearing punishment, walking on eggshells, doing all that stuff. We end that in the relationship to the self first. And then we have room to be okay with other people making mistakes, and people in our lives, like, having a mishap. And we have room to also say, look, here's how you can become accountable for your mistake. Here's my insight. And we don't personalize it in the same way. And then we also have room to see that if somebody isn't showing up well in our lives, okay, this isn't necessarily a match then. And maybe it's time to set a better boundary, but it's not from a place of spite and anger. It's from a place of awareness and compassion and care towards oneself, because we can't have really great self esteem and we can't have a lot of compassion and care towards ourselves when we're so busy beating ourselves up all day in our internal dialogue. So I hope this is really clear. Um, and I almost want to like keep talking for a minute because I really want everybody to stay until the end and hear all parts of this video, because I think that this is such an important and profound building block when it comes to healing. Changing your internal dialogue really changes a lot of things. Remember, the thoughts that happen on autopilot, these are all programming us over time to a certain degree. Repetition plus anything that elicits an emotion provides a certain output. And there's all these quotes like thoughts become things, or there are no idle thoughts, or all these different things. I'm basically babbling right now so that you will stay till the end and get really clear, because I know people don't watch all the way to the end of videos. But I want everybody to get as close to the end as possible, so that they get the most out of this video, because I just want to stress how important this is for everybody. And to make it super clear, like what I'm saying is people will click off like a minute before a video ends. And so I'm trying to extend this last minute so that you got all the way until the minute when it was supposed to end, because it was really important that I finished where I did about a minute ago now. So anyways, that is all for now. Thank you so much for being here and for watching. I hope that this really helps you be more kind and compassionate towards yourself. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot of value out of this channel, and I will see you in the next video.